Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the Garrison Institute's live interactive webinar. Today, our guest is Krishna Das. Krishna Das is a Grammy-nominated chant artist and has sung with people around the world for over 35 years. By sharing his life experiences on the path in his book, Chants of a Lifetime, and workshops with people around the world, participants have found a way to integrate spiritual practices in their lives in a better way with some peace of mind. KD has just released his 16th album, Peace of My Heart. More information can be found at krishnadas.com. Before we begin today's session, I'll go over a few logistical issues about our gathering. We are on a Zoom webinar, so participant audio and video are off, and you'll only see KD and for the time being myself. For anyone unable to attend live, we are recording these sessions. You'll have a chance to view recordings as well as a schedule of upcoming programs at garrisoninstitute.org. We offer these sessions free of charge as a goodwill gesture to support our community during such times of heightened uncertainty. We would welcome donations of any amount to help us continue offer these sessions. Thank you. Finally, we'll have time for Q&A toward the end of the call. You can post your questions in the Q&A panel, which is accessible at the bottom of the screen by hovering your arrow over the Q&A button. We're on for an hour today and we'll respond to as many questions as we can. Please forgive us if we're unable to get to your question. Thank you again, KD, for being with us today, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Namaste. Thanks for coming today. It's a blessing to be able to join with you all, meet you all. We're meeting inside of each other's awareness. That's where we're meeting. Physically, we're not meeting, but our awareness, which there's only one of it, we're entering into that together. So that's a great thing. I've been asked to share some of the practices that I do and discuss how my semi-unusual view of spiritual work has kept me alive over these years. So what I'd like to do is start with a short invocation. And this is, I always introduce this as a prayer to that place within us all that is real love. So this is an invocation to that place. Pavanukuma Kalavana Pavaka Gyanagam Jasuhradaga Asiram Sarachabda Atulita Baladhama Himmashala Badeham Danurjavan Krishan Jnani Nama Graganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Anaranamadisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Naman Pushpadi Kritavarisham Mashiki Kritarakshasam Ramayana Mahamalaratnam Andena Latnajam Anjananandaram Viram Janaki Shokanashanam Tisamaksahanta Ande Lanka Ankaram Ulanga Sindho Salilam Salilam Yashokavahi Janakatma Jaya Adatane Tadalanka Namamitam Pranjaliranjanayam Manojavam Maruttatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Vardashtam Vatatmajam Vanardayutamukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Anjane Matipatalan Kanchanadrikamane Vigraham Parijad Tarumula Vasanam Bhavayami Pavamananandanam Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjali Bashpavari Paripurna Lochanam Martinamat Rakshasantakam Bula Bajranga Bali Hanuman Ki Jai. So most spiritual practices are based on the understanding that within us lives presence, being, awareness, truth, joy, but that's covered up by our habitual identification with the so-called outer world. And so all these practices try to release us from that obsession with the information coming in through the senses, which is all the stuff we see, think, feel, our emotions, everything. So when we do practice, we're developing the ability to release whatever we're stuck to and come back to something. So most practices begin with an object of concentration. Concentration practice is usually the beginning of most paths. Once you surrender to the longing within to find a way to live in this world in a good way, to find a way to live without creating suffering for yourself or others, then we recognize that most of that, if not all of that, suffering is in the mind. And it's how we react to what happens in the world around us that causes us suffer. So these practices are a way of learning and training ourselves to release whatever we're stuck in, whatever we're obsessing about, whatever cloud has swallowed us up. And that's why they call it practice, because you have to do it. There's no other way. The prayer that I just sang was in Sanskrit, and it was a prayer to Hanuman in India, the monkey god, he's called. But my guru, Nim Karoli Baba, used to say, Hanuman is the breath of God. The breath of God. And you know, a book, there's a book called The Unvarnished New Testament, which is a translation of the original Greek writings of the sayings of Jesus in the New Testament, about 100 years after Christ. One of the first things written down. In that, the word for spirit, what they later translated as Holy Spirit, is actually, the word is breath. And if you think about it, the breath is what brings life to this mass of flesh and bones. Without the breath, there's no life. So the breath is what connects us to life, and the breath is what connects us, the inner breath is what connects us to the love that lives within us as who we really are, which is God, which is the divine, which is the soul, which is essentially Buddha nature as well. So when I got to India in 1970, I'd already been chanting a little bit, but when I got there and heard the way they chanted there, it blew my mind, because they were totally into it. So I just lit up and I think, this is for me. This is what I want to do. And I wanted to do it for myself. When I went to India the first time, I had no intention of coming back to America. None. Zero. And my guru allowed me to stay for over 2.5 years. And then one day he looks at me and he said, you go back to New York. You have attachment in America. You have to go. So that was rough. But it was the right thing. Eventually, I came to understand that. Not right away. So while I was in India, wherever chanting was going on, that's where I tried to go and just sit there and absorb. Because I recognized that this was something I could do. I could really give myself to this. You know, before I went to India, the year before, I was up in the mountains of New Mexico with Ram Dass at the Lama Foundation. And we heard that there was a guy who lived just down the mountain from us named Herman, who was an artist from New York, but he had been to India and he had learned how to meditate. Somebody who knows how to meditate, oh my God. So one day a few of us went down to visit him. Spent a couple of hours there. And then as we were leaving, I was the last one out the door. And I hadn't said anything to him all this time. Other people were talking to him. But as I was going through the door, he grabbed my arm and he stopped me. And he looked at me and he said, you have to find out why it is you can't give yourself 100% to whatever you're doing. Boy, did he nail me. I felt like one of those squirrels on the wall of a taxidermist shop, you know, just like nailed to the wall, tacked to the wall. That was so long, that was over 50 years ago. And I can remember it like it happened this morning. I was unable to give myself fully to what I was doing. And I recognized after he said that, that was a big issue for me. So when I got to India and I heard chanting, intuitively I knew this was my path. This is what I had to do. This is what I could do. I could really give myself to this. So now after 50 years, I can give myself 100% of 3%. That's about how much I can give. But that's better than it used to be. So when we're giving ourselves fully to something, when we're really in it, we're not in the past, we're not in the future, we're here right now. And in this presence, in this present moment, everything opens up from there. It's the future that causes us fear, and it's the past that programs how we respond to this moment. But in this moment, we have choices we can make. And the spiritual path is very much about getting a vote as to how we go through our day. Now in the situation we're in now, many of us are isolated at home. We really can see our minds at work. We're suffering terribly from the inability to slow down, to release the tension, to calm down. So for me, it's the chanting practice more than anything that brings me back home again and again and again and again. So now this is a practice. It's not a musical. You don't have to be musical. You don't have to have a good voice. It's about paying attention. So there's other practices you can do. And there are many ways to slow ourselves down and become more present. But for me, this adding these mantras, which in India are called the names of God, and understood is that this God lives within us. There's a presence within us that is our true nature, which is called God in many traditions. So all these names move us more deeply into our own hearts, not somewhere else, not up in the sky, but in our own being. It opens the door more and more to us. So we don't have a lot of time today, so rather than me just spouting off whatever's in my head, if you send some questions in, we can kind of direct this a little bit. I can look on the line here and see some. I'm going to try to confine the questions to this work that we have to do on ourselves in order to get through this. I don't know how it's going to last. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where it's going. That's above my pay grade. So I'll try to take questions that have to do with the issues of dealing with our own stuff. Yesterday I was chanting and tears began to stream down my face. I felt as though I was being chanted as opposed to myself doing the chanting. Can I expound upon this? Oh, I love to expound. Thank you. Well, actually, that's a wonderful insight, a wonderful thing to be aware of, because in fact, what they say in India is that there's a place within us that these chants, that these names are always resounding, going on. It's a level of awareness, a level of being. In fact, Ramana Maharshi, who is one of the greatest saints of this recent generation, he said our true nature is actually invocation, invoking the presence, invoking the truth and the awareness and the love. This is what our true nature is. So as we move more deeply into ourselves, we become aware that there is, you might say, a space that's filled with these, with the sound of reality. And There's a beautiful quote from St. John of the Cross. It said, "In the beginning, the Father uttered one word. That word is his Son. And he utters him forever in everlasting silence. And it's in silence that the heart must hear." This silence is our true nature. It's not the absence of sound. It's the space, the reality, the space in which we live. And these names that we sing and we hear, these are the names of that place. And by invoking these names, we move more deeply into that silence within us. And silence is natural. And it's not the absence of thought. You don't need to try to kill your thoughts and fight with your thoughts. We just have to recognize and let go again and again and again. Let go into this silence. It's something that one has to get used to, because we're so much about achieving and getting something, and so much of our neurosis takes over our spiritual intention. And we try to become the best this or the best that, or have the best butt on the block with the yoga practice, and I want to be the quietest mind, I want to be a great yogi. No, it's not about what we want to become. It's about what and who we already are. And these practices bring us in touch with that, which is already within us. What are a few simple chants that I connect with? All the names. Mostly, I chant mostly Indian chants from the Vedic tradition. They might say the Hindu chants, but I also chant many Buddhist chants. That's kind of where my thing works. I don't really think about it that much. I just let it happen. So, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Hare Krishna, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Shri Matre Namah. These are all very simple chants which have tremendous power. Every repetition of one of these names is actually a seed that gets planted in our mind stream. And eventually those seeds grow. They take root and they grow. Our job is to plant, not to watch and see, well, did it grow yet? Wait, it's been 14 seconds and it hasn't grown. What's wrong? I don't know this is terrible, I can't do this. No. Plant and live. Do your practice, live your life, and let the practice change us from within, which is what it does. It's almost like we were born with glasses on, but they were the wrong prescription. And as time goes on, through practice, they self-correct. The prescription self-corrects. And the way what we see out there actually changes. We're not changing what we see. We didn't make the prescription change. We did our practices. We deepened our understanding of the path. And then we see the world differently. What was scary before because we couldn't tell what it was, now we just see it's a tree. It's not a monster. And we see things more clearly, less colored by our own subjectivity. Am I an introvert? I'm curious how the isolation has affected you and how you might approach life differently once it's over. Well, on the very basic level, I just love it. I'm actually getting a chance to clean my room for the first time in 25 years. I'm sleeping, I'm getting rest. I've been living out of a suitcase for the last 30 years, coming home for a minute, but already planning the next thing, packing this, washing the clothes, putting them in the thing. So for me, I feel like there's a lot of crust that developed, a lot of barnacles that got covering my heart that are slowly falling away now as I breathe more relaxed, in a more relaxed manner, as I notice more and more how everything I see and feel is just my version of stuff, and I can release that, and my mind is quieting. My thoughts are quieting by themselves. I'm doing practice. I'm doing more practice than I've been doing because of the traveling. And I feel like there's been so much compression in my body and mind that's all loosening up now, letting go, lightening up. And I do miss singing with people physically. I love that energy, but meeting with with people like this is also incredible for me. Because the other day, there was an incredible, wonderful Lama, Rinpoche, that gave a teaching online because he had to close his center because of the virus. And he made it very clear at the beginning that the transmission was absolutely, totally available over the internet in this space, because we were meeting him in our awareness. So we're all meeting in our own awareness, which is where we actually live all the time. But when we're very busy, we don't see that. We get too busy. Western culture is too fast. And it takes a lot of remembering to slow down again and again and again. So in a sense, this is forced retreat for everyone. And for me, it's perfectly natural. I'm very happy and at ease, and thank God, by grace, I have everything I need at this moment for at least the short term. So what was the rest of the question, I think? Anyway, past that, so I hope that was okay. When learning to chant, how important is it to understand the words from the Sanskrit and other languages? I feel that the sounds themselves and the practice itself to do a lot as well without understanding. Absolutely. The real meaning of these chants is not in the intellectual realm. The real meaning of these chants is our experience as we release and go deeper. These are seeds that grow within us, that reveal to us reality. So, understanding or knowing the story of Ram or Krishna or Kali or Shiva and the traditional stories from India, if it appeals to you, fine. If it doesn't, fine. You sing, and when you notice that you're gone, you sing. That's the whole practice. You don't manipulate yourself to experience anything particular. You try to short-circuit all the evaluation that goes on, judgmental mind. Let it go, come back, let it go, come back. That's all you do. And as we become more aware, we become aware of many things within us also that come from within. And we're not looking in the outside world to push that button to make us happy or to give us something that we think we don't have. And that's a very big thing. You know, someone once asked the Dalai Lama, "Your Holiness, are you happy?" And he said, "Well, I guess you could say I've had a hard life. I was taken from my parents at an early age and raised in a monastery. And I had to take over the reins of my country as a teenager and deal with the Chinese trying to take over the country and invading the country. And then eventually I had to escape my own country, and now I live as a refugee. He said, the Chinese have taken everything from me. Am I going to let them take my happiness? That's big time. That's big time. For the most part, we let almost anything and everyone rip us off of our true nature, rip us off of our awareness of ourselves, and rip us off from our happiness. At some point you realize, well, I don't have to do that. That doesn't have to happen. And that comes from practice. We develop a way, we learn how to live in this world in a good way, with kindness and compassion to ourselves and others, and finding a little peace of mind in daily life. It's a very big thing, very big thing. Would it be better to completely submerge myself in meditation and chanting, perhaps by going to India to get diarrhea, or an ashram, or do it locally? What about using a different practice like Jewish prayer? Well, first of all, if it was your karma to be living in a cave, you'd already be there. From what you say, you're obviously on a computer, you know how to type, you're living in the world. This is where your work is. And if you're independently wealthy and you don't need to work and you can do more practice, that's a good thing. Try to do that. But recognize that practice, spiritual practice, is what gives us the strength to be here in a good way. There is nowhere else to be. Don't live in the future, I'll go to India. You'll get sick. It's no place to meditate. Here is where your life is. Do your practice here as much as you can do. 5 good minutes is as good as 5 hours of bullshit, of sitting there imagining that you're actually doing something. So you have to really deal with reality, in this case, with yourself, and see what works for you. Any prayer is good, any language, any tradition, they all move us to the same place, which lives within us. I enjoy listening to your talks as well as those of Ram Dass. You are both inspired by the love of your Guru, Neem Karoli Baba. What one book do you recommend for us who are on the seeker's path? Well, there's a million great books out there. I don't even know how to start. But if you've been listening to Ram Dass and me, then you might want to read about Neem Karoli Baba. And Ram Dass made a great book called Miracle of Love. And there are 2 or 3 books listed on my website, krishnadas.com, about Maharaji. So many wonderful books. I have no idea what to tell you. Yeah, not knowing what you're into, there's no sense recommending anything. But certainly, I would recommend Sharon Salzberg's books, Loving Kindness, and she's the teacher of metta meditation, loving kindness practice. Sharon Salzberg. This is an incredibly powerful, wonderful practice, excellent for Westerners. Great place to start, middle, and end. And there's so much in those books about the path and a way to see life. So it's not just sitting down and doing practice, it's how we see our lives, how we live inside of our lives. What drives us and how we deal with our totally subjective reactions to everything that comes up. And so just reading about this stuff and immersing ourselves in the Dharma leads to wonderful things. Do you think you were lucky to find your way with chanting? Or do we all have the true self-purpose somewhere? How do we find our purpose? depends where you sit to look at the question. It was my karma and the grace of my guru that led me to this practice. It was my longing to be free and to live in love that led me to this practice. Everyone has a lineage within that they're a part of from the beginning of time. And becoming aware of what practice you feel drawn to means learning how to trust your heart. If there's one thing that this path is about, it's about learning to trust ourselves. Learning to be in touch with our deeper feelings, our deeper longing. Finding our inspiration within. Everybody has that, of course. But we have to pay attention. We have to look for it and look towards it. And more than that, eventually we have to trust it. If we don't trust ourselves, what are we doing? If we don't honor ourselves, if we can't find a way to overcome all the negative programming that we get from Western culture, from growing up where we did and how we did and all the people and our experiences, if we don't get the strength to release the effects of that negative, painful programming, when we do, we wind up with ourselves. So that's why trusting yourself is so important. And there are a lot of issues about that. So just get into it and start working with that stuff and you'll find your way. So, kindness and compassion to ourselves first and then others. Self first? Well, what is self? You mean me? Is that self? Or is it the self that everyone's a part of? It depends what we're talking about. There's one thing we can do that if people did this in the world, in 2 seconds, there would be no problems anywhere. And that is usually translated as, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So if we treated other people the way that we ourselves would like to be treated, where's the problem? And in thinking of other people, we actually are not obsessing about ourselves. So if I'm not thinking what an asshole I am, there's probably not too many people thinking that in the world. But even if they are thinking about it, I don't know about it. So if I'm not thinking about it, then it doesn't exist for me. If I'm not giving myself a hard time, where is it happening in the universe? It's all in here that we're doing to ourselves. So I was just thinking, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and also do unto yourself as you would have others do unto you. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves, nourish ourselves, be kind to ourselves. We need to learn how to release all the stories we tell about ourselves to ourselves that we don't like. And those stories are running our lives. Now, inside of those stories is that longing in our heart to be free. And that's what we need to come into closer contact with and get in touch with that longing. Without getting in touch with that longing, it's just business as usual. You get born, graduate high school, drink some beer, and you die, and that's it, and you're not here for a moment. So, it's the longing which saves us in the long run. It also ruins your life because nothing is ever going to be enough until that longing is fully satisfied. What time is it? Okay. Can I share anything about how I got introduced to Tibetan Buddhism, which seems to be an important aspect of my path? are you going to record any Buddhist chants at some point? Well, I did record Tara's mantra on my previous CD. And I do sing some Buddhist chants fairly regularly. When I was back in 1970, when I was in India, we met Maharaji, and then he disappeared. He ran away after a couple of months. So we didn't know what to do. So we decided to go to Bodh Gaya, and we heard there were some meditation courses starting there. So we made our way to Bodh Gaya, which is the site of the Bodhi tree, which is the tree under which the Buddha sat and was enlightened. And while we were in Bodh Gaya, the Tibetans were streaming in. One huge wave of Tibetans were coming over the border from Tibet and streaming into Bodh Gaya. And we met many wonderful, wonderful people, lamas, rinpoches, so many wonderful people. Yeah. I wish I had more time to tell you more stories, but I don't, sorry. But that was when I first really came into contact with Tibetan Buddhism. And I met many wonderful lamas at that time. I just got a harmonium because I love how I feel when I chant in kirtan. What mantra would you suggest I start with? Come on. Whatever. What mantra sings to you? That's what you want to start with. It's up to you. It's not up to anybody else. Any one of the names, any one of the mantras is good. They're all the names of the same being. So you like it this way, you like it that way, it's all the same. Does my motivation ever fade? Oh well. What motivation? You know, there are days and there are days. You know, sometimes you're more motivated than other days. Sometimes you're lazy. Sometimes you're dull. Sometimes you're just tired. But, you know, I don't really beat myself up about it that much anymore, which is a pretty good thing. You do the best you can. It's not a race. It's not a contest. So add some practice to your life and allow it to change you from the inside out. Don't be evaluating. Well, how did it work? Was that a good meditation? No, that wasn't any good. It's not important what we think about it. What's important is planting the seeds. Of any practice is planting seeds. So it's 4:45 almost. We'll take another question or two. Sorry. Any ideas for being free of judgment and resentment of others when it gets intense? I read that Ram Dass had placed photos of difficult personalities on his altar, such as the current president. Well, going back to George W., yeah, he put some pictures up there. Because the idea was anything that closed your heart is something that closed your heart. And do you really want that? Do you want to live with a closed heart? Do you want to live with a spear in your heart every time you think of that person, or that person, or that person? It doesn't hurt them, it hurts us. So it's a way of opening beyond the judgment, the emotional and intellectual and whatever judgment of other people. We really don't know who other people are. We don't know what they've gone through. We don't know why they've developed into the kind of people that they have. But we can be aware that our interactions with them create suffering for us. So once we overcome that suffering, then we can be more present with anything. You know, I didn't like George W. very much, like a lot of people. In Texas, they used to call him Big Hat, No Cattle. But one day I was watching CNN and just about to turn the channel, and George W. comes on. And he was going to meet the first group of widows from the Iraq War. And yeah, I'm ready to chant after this. And the cameras were following him down the hall, and he was waving to people. You know, the ladies, the women were waiting in a classroom in the school. So he's walking down the hall. Yeah, hi, Joe. Hi, Jim. Yeah, I'm the president. That's it. Yep. So he walks down the hall. He walks into this room and takes one look at these women. There were about 15 or 20 of them. And he burst out crying like a baby, weeping. It really pissed me off. I couldn't hate him anymore. This guy would cause so much suffering for so many people, and I know he's going to have to pay for that himself, sooner or later. Karma is, you cannot change that. You cannot get away from your karmas. So the suffering that he caused due to the people that he owed to, his father, etc., the businesses that supported him, he's going to have to pay for that, and he's going to be suffering. And I can't help it. I didn't want to see him suffer. So it's like that. But in order for that kind of caring and compassion to arise, we need to soften our hearts up a little bit. So let's sing a little bit and soften them up. So we're going to sing Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And just sing along. I'll leave the space for you to sing so you can hear yourself. Just sing, and when you notice that you're not paying attention, sing. Just be aware again and again of how many times you have to come back again and again to the chant. Listen to the sound. That's attention. That's awareness. That's all you have to do. Don't try to manipulate yourself in any way to feel anything particular. Anything you can push yourself into feeling won't last anyway. So just be with it as it is. Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri 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 Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. I just want to close with a short offering. You know, if we know anything about a path at all, it's only because of the great beings that have gone before us. Out of their love, out of their kindness, they left some footprints for us to follow. So, in the same way that they wish for us, in the same way that they wish for us, we wish that all beings everywhere, all of us be safe, be happy, that all of us have good health and enough to eat. And may we all live in peace and at ease of heart, with whatever comes to us in life. Thank you so much. Good to be here with you today. Namaste.
Thank you so much, KD. That's beautiful. And thank you all for joining us today. KD has a number of current virtual offerings, which we'll post in the chat box, including weekly Thursday night online satsangs with chanting on YouTube, bi-weekly group discussions and Q&A on Zoom, online 6-week self-paced course launching May 2nd. And for more information, you can go to krishnadas.com. Our next session is this Thursday, April 30th at 1:30 with Michael Miller. Please keep checking garrison.org, garrisoninstitute.org for updated listings of future sessions and to view the recordings of this gathering and others. Again, we provide these sessions free of charge. If you would like to support this effort, please consider making a donation at garrisoninstitute.org. May everyone be happy, healthy, and safe. Thank you.